What's going on, everybody? So today's video is pretty cool. We have 3 photographers editing 3 different photos, actually 6 different. We have 3 photographers who are all gonna edit the same photo. There's not a right or a wrong way to edit your photos. It kind of comes down to personal taste, but there are some practices that are good to pick up on that you might want to include once you've learned what they are into your workflow. So I thought today's video would just be a fun way of showing how you can take the same image and edit it a few different ways. So we have Julia Manchik, who's a photographer and designer here at Moment, Sam Fu, who's a Seattle-based photographer, awesome dude, and then we had Erica, who also works at Moment. She's a killer photographer, shoots a lot of film. She couldn't make it today, so you have me. Maybe you'll learn something through one of us and just see how each of us take the style of photography into our own version of editing. So before we get into the actual editing, just want to let everybody know, if you haven't seen it yet, we launched a photography festival, a competition, one might say. It's called There There. We're super excited about it. Check out the video linked somewhere here or in the description below. But yeah, there's $60,000 of cash and gear on the line. There's gonna be 16 winners. We're doing a trip down to Joshua Tree for the winners. You can shoot it on any camera. Get your submissions in, all the details linked below. So let's get into this editing, and first up is Julia.
Okay, just dropping the photo onto my phone. I'm gonna edit the DSLR photo on my laptop and the mobile photo on my phone. All right, I have the photos on my desktop, loaded it into Lightroom. I have made my own presets. So I usually start with that, but then I'll kind of run through what I tweak in there. So that's my preset applied. The first thing I'll do is adjust the color balance or the temperature. So it looks a little warm. Bring that down a touch. The pink is starting to get kind of magenta, so I'll make it a little more on the green side. Okay, and then exposure, a little brighter. So if I didn't have a filter, I usually start with those 2 anyways. And then I would edit the tone curve. I already have the curve in my preset, but it's just a gradual S curve. I make my blacks just a little bit faded so they're not super harsh. Bring the highlights down a little bit. So I've tweaked the hue a little bit, and I'll adjust this by image if I need to, but I kind of tweak the reds, oranges, yellows, greens a bit, and then same with the saturation. I bring down the yellows and the greens. And the way I've adjusted these is just by looking a lot of images that I like and trying to match them. I've also played around with presets that are purchased, like VSCO presets or a fistful of bolts presets. I also really like Phil Chester presets, though I've never purchased and played with those, but they look awesome. To quickly view a before and after on Lightroom, you hit the backslash key, like right under the delete key. So that shows me what the image was before and after edited. So I'm bumping the yellow back to the, see how or the orange. I adjusted the orange to be more red before, but now I'm bumping it back to yellow so that her shirt is a little more yellow, less orangey. Her jeans are super blue, so I'm gonna bump the blue down a little bit. I feel like digital cameras make greens and blues super saturated, so I usually bring those down a bit. A couple other things in my preset is in the split toning, I changed the color of the highlight and the shadow just slightly. You can bump up the saturation to see what I changed. So my highlights are a little bit on the warm side, and my shadows are a little bit on the green side, which I think just gives it a little bit more of a filmy, natural look. And then I've got a little bit of sharpening on, and a little bit of grain down here somewhere, grain. And then I almost always do enable profile corrections, and that gets rid of like the vignetting if you're shooting with a wide lens, which looks like this was shot. I'm gonna go down to transform and try to straighten out some of the lines in the image because it's a little crooked, and I always shoot crooked. Okay, it looks pretty saturated. That's another thing I haven't touched yet is saturation, just overall. Bump it down 1, and then I'll usually mess around with contrast a little bit at the end. Dang, I don't want to commit.
What's up? My name's Sam. Test.
Sounds good.
So I guess the first thing, I always enable profile corrections for any distortion and vignetting. And I notice it's kind of crooked, so I always fix the horizons a little bit, make sure all the lines are straight. And then I'll usually apply a preset and then tweak everything manually. I'm using right now Mastin Labs. Basically, Mastin Labs is a preset. If you know VSCO, it's like a film preset. But Mastin Labs, I feel like, is a more accurate representation of a film preset. So I use that one. There's a lot of contrast, so I'm lowering the contrast, making sure the shadows are not too dark so I can show all the details. Actually, I'd crop this down a little bit more. Oh, and then usually for color, I try to keep the original colors as close to real life as possible. So I usually go back and forth between the before and after of the edit, and then look at the colors and then tweak it accordingly so it's pretty close to the same. I think I'm pretty much done with this image.
I do some photography, a lot of video, but stoked to do some photo stuff. So to be completely honest, I used to edit a lot in Lightroom for the photos, but now I just edit everything on my phone. My app of choice recently has been Darkroom. So let me start the screen recording. But yeah, so if you open it up in your library here, you have the raw photo, which it does put a little bit more contrast in for some reason. So pretty much go in and turn that down. This photo looks really good already, so I'm not too concerned about making it look that much better, to be honest. I'll turn the saturation down a little. I'm a huge fan of like shooting film whenever possible, just for a hobby, and then making my digital shots from my camera or from my phone's camera look more like film. So saturation down, vibrance down a bit. Whoa, too much. Yeah, I kind of like that. 20. Cool, so overall, I like the look of that after I've adjusted all the sliders and stuff. And then essentially what I do is hit this up arrow, and I always save a copy. Cool, yeah, so I love that grain. That darkroom adds such good grain. So then sometimes I take this photo, and then I'll go into VSCO. I'll import that I just exported. And then I put on, I don't have my filters arranged, I should, but no one's got time for that. A4, that's like the ultimate film look I like. It adds a lot of warmth, but I think it looks pretty sick. And before and after, by just holding and tapping, bam, that's the final shot I got. So happy on that one.
All right, I've got the mobile photo on my phone and I'm going to edit it using VSCO app. I've used VSCO app from the very beginning when it came out. I just love how simple and easy it is. Okay, here's the awesome photo Caleb took. Apply my favorite preset, which is 04. And then I'm gonna tweak a few things. This image is pretty blue, so first thing I wanna do is warm it up a lot. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna brighten it up just a touch. Get the whites a little bit whiter. And then like the blacks are looking pretty faded, so I'm gonna add contrast to darken those up a little bit, make the van pop a bit. Okay, so white balance, contrast, colors look pretty good. Another thing I do on mobile that I also did on desktop is adjust the tint of my shadows. I like them to be a little bit green. You often see that in film. I feel like it just makes it look more natural and gives it a nice mood. So I'll bump that up just a tiny bit. And then straighten the horizon line, which I have to do with almost every photo I take. That looks pretty straight. And then I also want to center the van a little bit. So crop it in just a little bit and bump this up so the horizon line is on the, using the rule of thirds and putting that on the crop line. Cool, it's looking nice and balanced. The last thing I do on mobile is sharpen it a little bit so it looks good on the gram. And let me see if there's anything I forgot. If there's people in there, I almost always adjust the skin tone to be more pink because I make it look a little more green overall. But since there's no people, there's no reason to do that. I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. 1 minute editing saved. There you go.
Alright, so now we're going to do the phone photo. Let's go into VSCO. Alright, so usually I would use A6, M5, or S3. But I'm going to use M5. Brighten up the image a little bit. I think I would turn up the temperature, warm up the image. Right there. And then usually I would go into clarity and add just a little bit of that, but not too much. Let's bump up the saturation just a little bit. And then I also like the grass in the background of this image, so I'm gonna go into the hue, saturation, and lightness, go into the orange, and then bump up the orange and saturation just a little bit. And I think I'm gonna go in the blue as well, trying to mess with the hue. So I tend to mess around with the hue and move the slide around just to see what tone looks best. Maybe bump up the saturation of the blue a little bit. I also like going into grain, adding just a little bit of grain for that film look, but not too much. Actually, I might add more clarity, just a little bit. And I think that's it. So I'm going to export it from VSCO. I'm actually going to go into Google Snapseed. And in here, I usually I like using the sharpening tool in this app because it works pretty well. And then I also use it to crop the image, even rotate the image, so making sure the horizon's flat. I'm gonna crop it. I'm gonna center the van in the frame. And then the last thing I'll do in Snapseed is just details to sharpen the image. Yeah, that should be it. And that's the finished image. Yep.
This time I'm going to start with this A100 filter. No, wait, sorry. A110 kind of adds an overall mood that I like just slightly. And then, and then I'm going to go in, add like 30 grain. Adjust the crop, or just the rotation just a little bit. And then I'm also going to use this button here on the right to essentially skew it so the top of the camper looks a little more straight up and down following that back line. So not too much. Don't get carried away there, everybody. So that's where it was. And then we're going to go to Yeah, like that looks good. So done, export, save a copy. Pop back over to VSCO. Open that. And we will do A4 again, which warms it way up. But I kind of like it. That to me is my a little more brighter. Yeah. Contrast more? Yeah. So that to me is kind of more of that film, fun, vibey look. I gotta export that, save to camera roll. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was interesting or you learned something about editing style. Remember, the There There photo competition is happening right now. We're super excited about that festival and that we're hosting it. Make sure to submit your photos. We've already gotten a ton of good ones back. It's open to anyone in the world, 18 and up, for legal reasons. Sorry about all the people who are under 18. I honestly do feel bad, but I want to just let you know we're here for you. That's pretty much it. Check it out, link below, and hope you enjoy these edits. There's some airplanes flying by. Peace.